Hello everybody and welcome to the fourth video in our series of videos on the parliamentary tradition in Ireland in the 19th century. As always, we begin with our learning outcomes, so by the end of this presentation you guys should know what Home Rule was and how the Home Rule Party came into being. Second, you guys should know how Charles Stewart Parnell became an important member of the Home Rule Party. And finally, you guys should know the reaction to obstructionism and what the new departure was. So today we will begin by looking at Charles Stewart Parnell and the fight for Home Rule. We saw at the end of O'Connell's fight for the repeal of the Union, there was a failed rebellion by the Young Irelanders in 1848. Well, another failed rebellion sparked the next big parliamentary movement, and this was the Fenian Rising of 1867. So the Fenian Rising was organised by the IRB, or the Irish Republican Brotherhood, which would evolve after the War of Independence into the IRA. So this organisation was founded by James Stephens in 1858, while a sister organisation was founded in America known as the Fenians. Now, the IRB, they wanted to achieve complete independent separation from England through the use of physical force. They believed this was the only way to achieve independence was to fight for it. After the failed rebellion of 1867, however, the Fenians in America, they reorganized themselves and they renamed themselves the Clan Nail. The rebellion failed because British spies had rounded up most of the leaders. The dismal attempt at rebellion was capped off by an attempted jailbreak in Manchester in 1867 by the IRA that led to three men attempting to free their comrades being executed for killing the police officer with a stray bullet. These three men became known as the Manchester Martyrs. So around the time of the Fenian Rising, a lawyer called Isaac Butt had gained national recognition for his impassioned defence of the leaders leading Fenians at the time who had been arrested before the Rising of 1867. So Butt, he came to the fore of Irish politics in 1870 when he organised a new association calling for something called Home Rule. Now, Home Rule was something similar to what Daniel O'Connell had been looking for with the repeal movement. And while it didn't state that it wanted the Union to be repealed, it did want to establish or set up a parliament in Ireland that would be in charge of internal affairs. By internal affairs, I mean things that were happening in Ireland, like education, like infrastructure, for example, like building of roads, etc. While he wanted to allow Britain to be in charge of the external affairs, like foreign policy and going to war and stuff like that. So the Home Rule League or party, it was this loose association of people and politicians, or an umbrella organisation. Because it was this loose association, it attracted members as diverse as IRB members and landlords. And one such landlord was Charles Stewart Parnell. He was a Protestant landowner from Wicklow who owned an estate at Avondale. He was elected as MP for Meath in 1875 as a member of the Home Rule Party. And Parnell's first notable contribution at Westminster was his declaration that the Manchester Martyrs, who we saw, they were not murderers. However, the thing that brought the most attention to him in his early career was his use of the tactic of obstruction. The tactic of obstruction had been introduced by another Home Ruler called Joseph Biggar, and Parnell adopted it early in his career. You can see from the cartoon here how the British saw obstruction. So what was it? So obstruction was when Parnell and Biggar and a few like-minded Home Rulers would obstruct any business or bills being enacted in Westminster. They would do this by standing up in the Parliament and making speeches for hours and hours on end without stopping so that no business could be done. One of the most famous examples of this was when 7 Irish politicians obstructed Parliament for 21 hours straight. It was like a relay race of speeches. Now, the reason for this policy was twofold. First, it was to agitate the British into giving Ireland its own parliament so that they wouldn't be obstructing British business anymore. And the second part of it is they wanted to highlight the way Ireland was being treated, in that policies and acts related to Ireland were being obstructed by British politicians in Westminster due to their ignoring of Irish needs. Now, this policy of obstruction was not liked or endorsed by the leader of the party, Isaac Butt. He felt it was too confrontational and would make the British less likely to give Ireland what they wanted. However, Parnell's denunciation of the treatment of the Manchester Martyrs and his new tactic did draw the attention of one of the leaders of the Clan na nGaEL, John Devoy. Devoy had been an organiser of the Fenian rebellion who was exiled to America after serving 5 years in prison. Now, Irish Americans like Devoy, they were crucial to any effort in gaining independence in Ireland, not only due to their knowledge, but also their ability to raise funds. Remember, Ireland was a desperately poor country at this time, and many of the Irish who fled during and after the famine, they still carried hatred for the British and were only too happy to try to fund attempts to escape British control. So in Parnell, Devoy saw an opportunity for a new tactic which he called the New Departure. The New Departure was a change in tactic for Clan na nGaEL, who up until this point believed that Ireland could only win her freedom through physical force, just like the IRB believed. But he was now willing to accept that it could be won by a combination of both physical force and political agitation, or using the Parliament to further Ireland's push for freedom. So while the IRB didn't back the New Departure, the clan's backing and Parnell's standing was enough to see him voted as leader of the Home Rule Confederation of Great Britain, which was basically the British branch of the Home Rule Party, while Isaac Butt, he retained the overall leadership of the party. However, the event that was to launch Parnell into leadership of the whole party was starting in one of the places that truly suffered in the famine, that was the west of Ireland. The land war was about to begin in the west of Ireland, thanks to, in part, to an IRB man called Michael Davitt, and we will be looking at that in more detail in our next video. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. So by now you guys should know what Home Rule was and how the Home Rule Party came into being. You guys should know how Charles Stewart Parnell became an important member of the Home Rule Party, his denunciation of calling the Manchester Martyrs murderers, his use of obstruction tactics, and eventually his election to the Home Rule Confederation of Great Britain, the leadership of the Home Rule Confederation of Great Britain. And finally, you guys should know the reaction to obstructionism and what the New Departure was. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys got something good from this video.